Hello, hello. Welcome to yet another Next Work live project walkthrough. Today, we're going to be doing the database project, visualize a relational database on Nextwork. So, for all of you who are joining in for the first time, the link is in the description. Follow along with me and we'll walk through the entire process of creating a relational database, populating it with the data, and then connecting it with QuickSight so that we can actually visualize it and have really nice graphs and charts and all that good stuff. So the goal of this project is to set up our own relational database and really just have fun with it. The only requirement for this project is that you have an AWS account. The link is in the description if you want to go ahead and create one. You will also see the link right here to create it within the project itself. But other than that, we'll go through step by step of the entire process. And if there is steps that require you to do something that we are assuming that you already have, for example, the IAM user, IAM admin, if you can create that, it would be a little more convenient, but you can always pause and create it while we're going through the project. So no worries if you don't have any of that. We can go through it together, shall we? Okay. So what we're going to do is go through the project. Nextwork Projects has 3 modes: step-by-step guidance, some guidance on your own, depending on how much, the kind of level of detail you want in your project. So let's go with step-by-step and make it, break it down all the way. So we'll start by always just remembering what we're here to do. So in this project, I will demonstrate how to create a relational database and connect it with QuickSight to visualize it. I'm doing this project to learn how databases can be managed on AWS. All right. So there's another thing about Nextwork projects is that if you fill out all these tasks and complete all the questions, at the end of the project, you'll get a nice little documentation that you can use to put it on your social media, on your LinkedIn, show off to everyone that you've completed a project, that you've learned a skill. And so it's a nice little thing. So do follow along with me if you haven't already. So there's a pre-project quiz, but there's also a quiz after the project. So let's do that instead of the one before. Okay, so step 1, as I mentioned, we do need an IAM user. What is an IAM user, you ask? I got you. An IAM user is a user that basically is protected in the sense that you have the root user, who is the user, the administrator that has all the access to all the policies, to all the services, all of that. The IAM is kind of the similar concept, but it's protected. So instead of having like a master key, instead of using the master key, you're using a copy of the key so that if there's any errors, if there's any reason to reverse things, you know exactly where and why or who would have been responsible for that and what needs to be reversed. Make sense? If you have any questions on any of these, try and explore the ask function, where you can just ask, what is the purpose of the IAM in this project? And if you hit ask the community, you'll go to the community. But if you just press enter, you'll get a nice little breakdown on what on your question, and you can always delete and ask more questions on that same area if you want, or you can save it and it will be there for whenever you want it. So I'm going to remove this highlight and we're going to keep going. So in this step, I will create and use an IAM and login as my IAM user to ensure that I am following secure and best practices. It's a good practice to always use IAM users. Okay, so again, for this demo, we're going to assume that you already have an IAM user. And if you don't, go ahead and just create one, but we will keep going. We will try and log into the AWS Management Console. So I have it right here, and I am logged in to the IAM user. And we can keep going. So make sure you're logged in, and we're going to actually create the relational database. So how are we going to do this? We are creating a database, we're populating it, and then we have to connect it to our QuickSight. What is a relational database? Great question. Relational database is basically a database that has rows and columns. So think of it like a table, and you have data that is sorted by the columns, and each row is related to the column, thus the term relational database. So in this step, I will create a database because I want to connect it with QuickSight. Okay. So we're going to go to make sure you know the region. It's important for later when we're using it to connect to QuickSight. But for now, it's all good. Just make sure you know where it is, and we can keep going. Depending on the project, depending on the services that you're using, you may have to change the location of your AWS, especially if there's specific services that you want that isn't available. QuickSight is okay. RDS is okay, so it doesn't really matter. We can keep going. So let's head to our Aurora and RDS console. Whenever you see these, you can always just copy it and paste it. And once you do, for RDS, for example, make sure you start so that it's there and accessible whenever you want it. And for this project, we will be using it quite a bit. Okay, so now that we're in the dashboard of RDS, let's go ahead and go to our database and create a database. Okay, make sure you select the Easy Create, and we want to select MySQL. And we will select free tier. All right. Okay, so what is MySQL and how is it different from SQL? SQL is a language, which stands for Structured Query Language, and it's used for managing and manipulating relational database. MySQL is a relational database management system that uses SQL to be managed. Think of it like a database being a library and SQL being the commands that can retrieve things from the library. So everything looks right, and we can keep going. But as we always do in the next web projects, we complete all these tasks so that we have a nice little document afterwards, right? Okay, so there's one more task here. The difference between MySQL and SQL is that MySQL is a relational database management system, whereas SQL is a language. It stands for Structured Query Language, and is used to manipulate MySQL databases. Amazing. Okay, so that's done. We'll keep going. Let's add a name, an identifier, and have a username, admin, and make sure you come up with a nice password that is both strong and easy to remember for you, or you can always use one of those password apps to store it. And all looks good. So while that's being created, let's really quickly answer the question. A relational database is a type of database that uses rows and columns to organize data. How did you create a relational database in AWS? I created my relational database by using the Aurora and RDS service, and quickly configured the database using easy create function. Nice. Okay. So while that's been created, it looks like it might take a little bit of time. That's okay. What have we done so far? We've actually created a database instance in our AWS, but there is no data in there, right? So what we need to do is we need to actually insert and add data to it. And we're going to do that by using a tool called MySQL Workbench. It's one of the most popular database tools, and it's by Oracle. So if you don't already have it, we will download it. I'm going to assume that y'all have downloaded it, and if you haven't, just pause and download where you can. And then we're going to configure the security connections, the security groups around our RDS instance to make sure that MySQL Workbench can connect to our RDS, because that's outside of AWS, right? So that's mainly what we're going to do. So in this step, I will use MySQL Workbench to create to enter data. In order to do that, I need to connect it with my RDS instance. Nice. All right, so why are we using MySQL Workbench? Well, it's a little easier, but if you've got a large data set, it might be easier to use something that's native to AWS. But for small data sets, and because we're learning to understand how the database works on AWS, we're using MySQL Workbench as an external tool to quickly add and import data into the system. So if you haven't already downloaded, make sure you do. So, as long as you're in the No tab, you can keep going and follow all the steps and instructions and the links to download the tool. Since I've already installed it, I'm just going to open it on my system. Okay, so I've opened the system and I'm going to go back to my database. We're going to select the database and then we need to modify it. But if you don't see the modify option active, just give it a second. It's probably just created, so it's going to take a little bit of time. If you want, you can even try going back and forth to see if it's ready. And yeah, no need to panic if it's not an option yet. But in the meantime, you can sip some water, have a sip of your tea, or stretch. Stretching is good when you're spending so much time on AWS and on the projects. Stretching is a very, very good thing to do. All right, let me see if modify is an option. Not yet. So technically, we could probably do some of the other steps before, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's go step by step and wait. Just to go through and get a little bit ahead of what we're going to do, we will, once we have created it, we'll set up the connection so that it is publicly available. And we want to do that because we want our tool, MySQL Workbench, to be able to access our RDS instance even when it is not part of the AWS platform, right? So we're going to start out by making it publicly accessible. Now that I see that there's a modify option, let's create the modify. And since everything is already in there, and let's go back to the database, click here, and then modify right there. Oh, no, that's not where we need to go. Let me try again. This modify. Okay, so go to database, select your QuickSight database, and then on the right corner, you'll see the modify. Yeah, so here we want to go down to additional configuration under the connectivity pane. Everything else looks about right. Yes. Okay, and we have a default security group. Additional configuration, we will make it publicly accessible. And yep, let's continue. And we're going to set it to apply immediately because we want it to happen now. And we don't have anybody else who's dependent on our database in order for, there's no need to wait. You don't need to tell anybody that our database is being modified, right? So let's answer the question. The first thing I did was make my RDS instance public because I want the MySQL Workbench to connect to my RDS instance. Okay. So basically, this is to illustrate what's happening. It's that we have our RDS public, and MySQL is trying to enter, but because of the default security group, there's some protection. So we need to modify the security group to make sure that our RDS instance can be accessed through anything in our local machine. So how are we going to do that? Okay, so it says modified, but here it says modifying. That's okay. Let's just look into this. Okay, so we'll click on the VPC security groups, the clickable default security group. And what we're going to do is we're going to create some inbound rules, right? Inbound rules are, in case you wanted an explanation, let's take a look. Why is this necessary? So we have a security group that is acting like a wall around our AWS resource. And what it basically does is it monitors and controls who gets to access and who the instance gets to access. So the inbound and the outbound traffic. And we get to configure that. Those are the rules that we set to decide how secure we want our RDS instance to be, what are the tools and services that are allowed to enter, and all those kinds of things. So just a tip, anytime you want to ask more questions about why are we doing this step, what is this for, feel free to use the ask feature. All right, and if you were done using it, you can always delete it or you can just keep it. Your call. So let's edit the inbound rule. And we'll add a rule. We'll go to all TCP. And under all TCP, we'll choose the IP as my IP. So basically what that does is that it allows all traffic from my IP address. Okay, so I will take a screenshot of this. Let me make a nicer screenshot without the green banner. I'm a little picky about my screenshots, aren't I? I mean, it goes into your documentation, so if you want it to look nice, it's not a bad idea. Okay, so we upload that and hit save rules. I already did. And so I had to update the default security group for my RDS schema because I want my tool, MySQL Workbench, to have access to my RDS instance when it is on my local machine. So therefore, it uses the same IP address. So now let's open the MySQL Workbench. And let's verify that MySQL Workbench is there. Everything looks okay. And I've opened it. I'll select database on the top and select manage connections. So here I want to, connect to an existing RDS instance, right? So make sure you create new. Very easy to want to type here, but you have to click new, and we'll enter all the data all the information to connect. So basically that is the connection name. And for the host name, we need to go back to our RDS instance and check out the connectivity. And this endpoint is your host name. So let's go back here, paste it, and then use the username that we created with the password. So I hope you still remember the password. And I hope I remember the password. Let's find out. Make sure the port is correct and then test the connection. And it says successfully connected. Yay. So let's keep going. Do we need to make a screenshot here? No, I think we're all good. Once you get that successfully made SQL connection, which is a very fulfilling experience, of course, we can continue to the next step. I just want to point out that there are many folks who have gotten stuck at this stage, either because of the version of Workbench or because of some network configuration. There are folks that have gotten stuck and have documented how they've troubleshooted the error and fixed it. So check out the post if you are stuck in this place. And if you're still stuck in spite of the post, just put a question yourself, and we're all there to help you out, including myself. All right, so let's keep going. We're on step 4. And in this step, we are going to create a new schema. A schema is basically like a design or a blueprint of our database. And then we're going to create 2 new tables, add it to the schema, and then populate it with data using SQL. All right, so in this step, I will create a new schema using my SQL Workbench because I want to add 2 new tables and populate them using SQL. Cool. So let's do it. So we'll close any pop-ups you have and then go on to I don't see any. So make sure you refresh. And so when you refresh, you will see your database. So click on the database. And now we have a nice little tab for administration, schemas. You might see query 1, you might see nothing at all. All good. Got you. So let's actually create a schema. So on this left gray pane, we'll right click, create schema, and let's call it QuickSight database. Okay, and we'll put apply. All right, and we're going to create the schema as is. Everything looks okay. So I'm going to hit apply. And everything worked just fine. So let's close that and open up the query. If you don't see anything, just look at this icon over here and just create a query. We're going to copy this SQL code that has been provided. If you just look at it, you can understand that it's create table, and the create table is creating a new table called new hire, which has all these parameters or inputs that we need to add into the table. And you have the name as well as the type, like is it an integer, is it a string, how many characters, those kinds of things. Okay, so once we do that, let's run the query by clicking on the lightning. Okay, so it looks like there's an error, and sometimes what happens is that we forget to select the schema that we want to run the query on. And the project already points it out because it's way too common of a problem. So make sure that you click it and then you run it. Okay, and if you still get an error, don't fret. It's probably something that is just gone wrong in the console. And it's happened to me a couple of times. All you have to just do is try it again. Okay, see? And it worked. Okay. So now that we ran that code, what happened basically is that we created a table, and it says that 0 rows were affected. Why? Because we just created a table that said, okay, these are the columns that we want in the table. And as we add data, those should be different rows. And we didn't give any other data. So we've just created an empty table. To show you that, you can check out this SQL code, and we'll just replace this and run it. And you will see that it pulls up all the columns of data that you wanted to enter, but there's no data itself, right? And so that's exactly what we did when we created that empty table. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to input and populate our table with all these contents. Look at that. We've got Johnson and Harding and Taft, and these are all our employee names, and they've got an employee number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. And all the little pieces of information that we wanted to be organized in our little table is going to be populated with this code. So let's run that. And when we run, it says successfully. So you can see the green tick. So it's been a success. We've run the insert into action with all these data. And that's 14 rows, which is 14 rows of data. So it's basically 14 employees, right? So now how do we see? Well, remember the same code that we had before when we wanted to look at our empty table? We use that. Let's run it. And voila, look at this beautiful table with all of the contents that we entered using SQL. Isn't that gorgeous? So fulfilling, I tell you. Let's take a screenshot of this and put it in our task so that it comes out in our documentation. Okay, so when we hit done, we keep going, and we're going to create one more table called the department. And here you can see, just from the code, we're going to create it and add all these information. So these are the columns that we want for each row of data. And then we're also, in the same code, going to add and populate the contents of our table. So not only are we creating a new table, we're populating it as well. So I'm replacing what was there, and I'm going to run it again. And it says successfully created the table and successfully inserted the data. So now how do we run it? Remember the same code that we used, except this time we're going to use department instead of new hire, because that's the name of our new table, right? Okay, so let's run this. Woohoo! We have a lovely table that's already created and populated. Nice. So to populate my database, let's answer this question. I used SQL commands such as create table, insert into, and to view the database, I use the command select asterisk, which means all. All right, let's hit done. And we go to the next step. So now we want to connect our RDS instance to QuickSight. And how are we going to do that? Well, as you know, we have set up our RDS to look at anything that has access to our local host. Now, the problem with that is that anything in the local host will have access. But what if we want it to be more secure, right? How do we adjust the security group so that it allows requests from QuickSight? So in this step, I will adjust the security group attached to my RDS instance because I want to connect my RDS instance to QuickSight. Okay, done. So now let's go back to our RDS instance, which is right here. And then under connectivity and security, the same thing that we did, we want to modify our security group. So we click on the security group and we are going to edit. We're going to edit the inbound rules. We're going to add one more rule and we're going to allow all traffic. What does that do? That's basically saying that anything, any IP address, anywhere should be able to access my instance. And we're doing that because we just want to be able to connect to our instance using QuickSight, right? So go ahead and save the rule. And then let's navigate to Amazon QuickSight. So you could use a different tab for this, which is not a bad idea because we'll have to go back to RDS, but that's okay. We can come back to it later. So if you are familiar with using QuickSight, it's a good practice to delete QuickSight when you're done using it because you don't want to be charged unnecessarily. Sometimes AWS can be sneaky that way. So I had deleted my account. I'm going to create a new account with the same email address, same everything. But one thing to be mindful of is to make sure that the region is matches your RDS instance. So select that first because it'll get refreshed. And then we'll add my email address. It's already there. Everything else is fine as it is. I'm just going to put it as my next work. And then set everything to work as it is. We don't need to do anything else, but let's just check IAM and make sure you unselect this. Let's finish. And And while that's being created, let's just check, is there another question that I need to answer? No, it's just testing. So what we're going to do once we create the account, it looks like there's going to be a lot to see. And okay, so everything has been created. We'll go to QuickSight. And what happens when we log into QuickSight? We see the dashboard, okay? And it says no analyses. Let's create a data set. And we'll select RDS. It says I do not have the permission to auto-discover this type of AWS resource. Okay. All right, let me see if we can solve this by using the ask feature. I ran into this error. How do I resolve it? Okay. So basically, it means that QuickSight doesn't have the permission to access the AWS resource that I'm trying to use. What is the AWS resource that I'm trying to use? It's the RDS, right? So let's go and check our IAM role and permissions. So let's go to AWS and go to IAM and check the user. So I have an IAM admin and I want to look at the roles. Okay, so I see all these. This looks like it was created just now. Okay, yeah, just 2 minutes ago. And what we're going to do, what ask tells us to do, is to add the necessary permissions. So it doesn't tell us exactly what the necessary permissions are, but I'm just going to go and check what permissions are available and what has been given, what this role has access to. Okay. Okay, I see all of this. Okay. Let me also just go to my manage QuickSight, and let me check my security and permissions. I know that I selected the IAM even though the instructions told me not to. So let me be a good girl and follow the instructions and see if that helps. Okay, so what happened was, because I selected the IAM, I think it generated that QuickSight role. So let me see if I can go and deselect some of the policies attached to that role. Or it says the following policies are not attached, and it's asking for those policies. So let me search for the policy and see if I can add it. Okay, and I want to attach it to my QuickSight and maybe even my IAM role and see if that helps. Okay, let's go back. And it's been removed. So let me just go back to QuickSight and see if I can create the data set that I wanted to. Okay. All right, so let's add the data source name and then select the database. And then for the database name, we're going to select what's already been given. And we're going to use our old credentials. I mean, the credentials that we used to create. And we'll do create data source. Let's validate the connection. Okay, yay! Everything's looking good. Okay. So we see the two tables that has come up. So to connect my RDS instance to QuickSight, I modified the inbound rules of my security group and selected RDS in the options to create a dataset. Okay. All right, so the thing now is that our RDS instance is publicly available, right? So anybody can access it. And so we need to make it more secure. And how are we going to do that? Security groups, of course. So what we've done right now is risky because any external user tool service can access our or my RDS instance. And to solve that, I would create a security group explicitly for QuickSight to access my RDS instance. Done. Awesome. So let's go back to the console. We're going to secure QuickSight in this step. We're going to add a security group and then specifically say QuickSight has access to access the RDS, right? QuickSight has the permission to access the RDS. So in this step, we will create a new security group. For QuickSight and attach it to the new security group. Okay, so I'm missing a bunch of words and a few letters, so bear with me here. Security group for QuickSight and attach QuickSight to the new security group. Nice. Okay, so let's now go to QuickSight. Oh, no, let's go to the AWS console and search for security groups. Ready? Okay. So we see our security group here. We're going to create a security group and we're going to call it QuickSight. Oh, why type when I can just copy paste? And add a little description there. Okay. And here we're going to leave the inbound and outbound rules as is. And we will just hit create security group. What we do need to do is remember the security group ID so we can copy it from here and just paste it here so that we can use it later when we need to. So why have we created this new security group? I made a new security group so that QuickSight can access RDS. Done. Okay, so now let's go to QuickSight. Okay, I already have it up here. I'm going to close this. I am going to select Manage QuickSight and then Manage VPC Connections. And under VPC connection, add a connection. Put in RDS VPC. Add our VPC ID. For execution role, select the default QuickSight service role, and then select the default subnets that are available. And then for the security group ID, well, what was our group ID? Mine ends with D52C, and I see that right here because the other one is the default security group. So we don't want that. We want the one that is made explicitly for QuickSight. Now it says that the role provided is unauthorized to perform the required actions. Okay. Errors come up all the time, no fret. Let's figure out why it says that. The role provided is unauthorized to perform the required actions. So this is the role provided, and it doesn't have the permission to access it. So I'm just going to check the QuickSight settings, and let me go to security and permissions. All right, so I see that IAM isn't there, but we're also using the QuickSight managed role. Let me go and check the QuickSight managed role. Let me look at the roles, and I see this here. What are the policies in here? Okay. I wonder if we need any other policy that might be missing. Let me add policies and see if there's anything in here that looks like it should be in there. I see a describe RDS resource that seems relevant, but it should have been in there, right? Let me see if I can do anything here to see if there's any error that should be resolved. Okay. Okay, so there are some policies that it needs. So let me add the Redshift policy and the RDS policy. So where's the Redshift policy and the RDS policy? Is it the describe RDS? It's the RDS policy and Redshift policy. Let me look again. So I think the Redshift policy might already be there. I'm going to add this one. Yeah, the RDS policy is already attached to this role. Let me refresh. Okay, so let me go back and try again. This policy was managed outside. Yes, I know, I did that. But let me just check if that helps out in any way. So what we wanted to do is add a VPC, right? So manage VPC connection, add VPC, connection name, RDS VPC. We have the VPC ID, we have an execution ID. Select all of this as we did earlier. Hopefully everything looks right. Okay. It didn't get resolved. I'm wondering what happens if I select the other group ID? Would that work? Okay, so something is going on with this role. So if you were running into this error, let's troubleshoot it together. If you're not, just skip ahead and I'll catch up with you. Let's see. What could I be doing that could be managed? Let's see. Guess what? This role was already designed to have an error. Silly me. All good. Let's go and resolve it by following the instructions here. Sometimes Nextwork projects tries to teach in a way that helps us debug. It's always okay to keep looking ahead to see if there's anything that you missed, or go behind to check if you missed anything, or go a little forward to go through that. Okay, so let's search for our role here. Or I can go here and I find it. And I'm going to click into the AWS QuickSight service role. In the permissions policy, I'm going to select add permissions and attach the, let's go back, add permission, create inline policy, copy the code, and we use a JSON object. Okay, and we select next, and yeah, so sometimes we need to add our own policy. You can always look through the code and understand what's happening. Like it's allowing all these actions to take place. And in doing that, we are allowing QuickSight to access our VPC. Right, so now I am going to select create policy, which I did. And then let me try again. Let's go to QuickSight. Oh, oops. Let me go back. Add VPC connection. Add the name. What was the name? VPC ID is right here. Execution role. All of this are things that we already know. And then security group ID, which one was it? The one that ends with 52C. And add. Yay! It feels so good to resolve errors. And you have no idea how many errors I run into with projects. Totally fine if you do. And let's add that. Okay. So we keep going. And so now I connected my security group to QuickSight by adding and inline policy explicitly to connect my security group to QuickSight. Okay, done. So now let's secure RDS. So we go back to RDS, make our RDS instance private instead of publicly accessible, because now we have a security group that can connect to it. And then we will create a new security group, especially for our RDS instance, so that our QuickSight security group can access our RDS security group, right? And they can talk to each other. So in this step, I will secure the RDS instance by making the instance private and giving the necessary access to the QuickSight and RDS security groups. Okay. Done. So now let's go and make the database instance private. So we go here and then click modify. And then under the connectivity section, we go and select additional configuration. And this time we select not publicly accessible, right? And then we continue, scroll all the way down to continue, and let's apply those modifications instantly. Okay, now let's create a security group for RDS. So we go to the security groups and then enter the RDS security group in the creation. Okay. What else do we need to do? We need to select the default VPC. Awesome. For the inbound rules, let's add a rule and do for the type, let's add MySQL Aurora. And the source, let's do custom. And we look explicitly for our QuickSight security group and we add. Yep. Perfect. Matches our security group. Awesome. Let's take a screenshot of this. And we hit done. Okay, now let's create the security group. Oh, did I not put a description? Let's add that description, shall we? Okay, now we hit security group and we keep going. So to make my RDS instance secure, I made it private and created and connected or added a inbound rule to connect it with the security group that I had created to securely allow the RDS and QuickSight connection. Nice. So now we have everything that we need. We'll attach it to our RDS instance. So let's go to our RDS instance. Going back to RDS right here. and hit modify or click on it. Okay. Go to connectivity, and then under security group, let's add that RDS security group. Okay. Everything looks good. Let's continue and apply immediately. Modify our DB instance. So it says it's already done. Everything's looking good. I made sure that my RDS instance could be accessed from the QuickSight by modifying the, what did I modify? The security groups that, the security group that can, the security group that can access my RDS by adding the QuickSight, the RDS security group, by adding the RDS security group, right? Okay. Whew, almost done, almost done. So now let's go and reconnect the RDS with QuickSight. So in this step, I will create a data set in QuickSight because I want to connect the RDS with the QuickSight and visually see and play with the data. Nice. Okay, so now let's go back to our QuickSight console. Let's go to the database data sets from the left menu. Let's do new data set, RDS, add all the information that we need, instance, and now it says connection type RDS and not public. Woohoo! Let's copy that. And then you know the drill. You have your admin and you have your password. And let's validate the connection. Success! It's connected and validated. Let's create. Oh, wow. Oh my goodness. I forgot. I was so excited. I forgot to select the validated. That's okay. We can put this as our screenshot because it's so exciting. Okay, so I selected create data source, and then I'm going to select new hire as the data that I want to visualize. And so let's select, and we'll directly query the data, and let's select visualize. Whew. I'm so excited. Okay. So what is different about your data source now that you've reconnected? My data source is different from the initial data source because it is not publicly accessible, but through the security group. Okay, step 9, let's make some charts and let's visualize this data. Okay, so in this step, I will make charts, make some charts because I want to visualize the data. Nice. So let's cancel this and let's go and select our vertical bar chart. and let's add jobs to the x-axis. Okay, and let's add salary to the value. So now you can see how the data looks. Isn't that beautiful? Okay. Wow, 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 wow. I am just enjoying that the data can be visualized and that everything has been configured and all of that good stuff. Feel free to play around with all the parameters and all the filters, all the values, and really kind of just enjoy playing with the data. And let's, let me see, let's add a dimension. So we're looking at how the different jobs compare by salary. So it looks like the managers do quite well. We can add all these texts and filter it, all that stuff. Just have fun with that exploration. I am going to take a screenshot of my beautiful chart. But before that, let me name my data set RDS new hire. And let me hit publish. Okay. And let's do publish. Exciting, exciting. Let me take a screenshot of this and add it in there. Oops. And then hit done. And we're done, guys. So really have fun with QuickSight. You will really enjoy looking at what all can be done. And then in your dashboard, you can have multiple charts and diagrams and get creative. Share all your fancy databases and charts and visuals. I'd love to see all of them and then share it in the community.nextwork.org. Put it all in there. Okay? But we've gone through the entire project step by step. What's really important is that we delete all the resources. So it should be fairly simple to go back and delete everything that we've created, but let's go through the entire piece step by step. Let's first delete the dashboard. So from the dashboards, we select the right corner, 3 dots, and we select delete. We go to analysis and we select delete. And then we delete the data. So we go to the data set and we select delete. And now we go to our database instance in the RDS and we select delete. Now this is an important part. Make sure you uncheck the create final snapshot and uncheck the retain. And then check this. Basically, you're saying that there's going to be no backup of this, but you want that because you don't want to be charged for it, right? So let's delete. And that's being deleted. Now we go to our security groups. So I'm going to go through the IAM. No. better to just go through the EC2 console. Okay, let's go through the EC2. Select security groups. Where is the security groups? Right here. And let's just delete all. This is the default. So we're deleting the 2 security groups that we created. Okay. I'm going to select, oh, could not be deleted. Okay, why is that? Let's see. Because we have a security group that is associated with it and a network interface that's associated with it. So if you've run into this error before, yeah, what we need to do is go back to QuickSight and manage QuickSight, and then go through the VPC connection, and let's delete this. So once we delete that, okay, it says unavailable. Now let's try to delete the 2 new security groups that we had created. Okay, it says that there's still some network interface being referred to. So I'm going to go and delete those. Okay. Let's refresh this. Okay. And let me try this again. Okay, there's a security group that needs to be, that is associated with it. Let's try and delete that. Yep. And then go back here and hit delete. Uh-oh. Oh no. Let's see. Okay, so this is the one that we need to delete now because everything else has been deleted. Yes, I want to delete that. And amazing. So now our security groups has been deleted. Now let's go and delete the IAM policy. So to delete the IAM policy, we go into the policies. And let's look for AWS QuickSight service roles, or it must be already there. Yep. And let's select it. And then under permissions policies, select this one. This is the one that we had created. And then all right, and these were the ones that I had tried to add, but I don't think it's fine if it's there. It can be left as it is as well, or you can remove that as well and add it back later. Either way should be fine. And actually, you can even delete this role because it was created when we created our QuickSight account. Yeah. So let's go back to our QuickSight, and we'll go ahead and delete or terminate our QuickSight account. So how did we do that again? Here, manage QuickSight, account settings, and manage. And then here, we want to turn this off because we don't want to be charged for anything. We're deleting everything and removing all the evidence, all the footprint of it, right? So delete it all. Yeah, so make sure you toggle it off. Everything looks good. Amazing. Okay, So now, if you want, you can go ahead and delete the Workbench. Shout out to Karishma for understanding. She ran into this error, which we just ran into today in this demo. But other than that, everything looks good. And I just want to, out of curiosity, see it's still there. I'm very curious to see if it's still there. You could delete it because it gets created when you create a QuickSight role. But other than that, we are all set and done. So we have completed the project. Oh my God, this is so exciting. And we can add a couple more final touches. Amazon RDS is a service that allows us to create relational databases on AWS. I used RDS to create a database, populate data, connecting it with MySQL Workbench. I also managed the security groups to secure the connection of my RDS instance and connected it with QuickSight to visualize my data. One thing I didn't expect in this project was the number of errors I would run into. And to be honest, when I did this project, the first time, there were no errors, but every time after, I've run into so many errors. And the cool thing is that with each time, I learned the project, the database, the services, the groups a little bit more, right? So it's good to run into errors. It's good to get frustrated. It's good to work through it and push through and just relentlessly go through. I think this project took me about a little less than 2 hours. And yeah, I am here because I want to learn about databases on AWS. Something that would make learning with Next work better is more fun projects. Ta-da! Okay, now we can do the quiz, shall we? Okay, we're gonna ace this quiz. What is a relational database? A relational database has rows and columns. So A. Woohoo! What is the most secure way to connect QuickSight to an RDS instance? We could create separate security groups for QuickSight and RDS and then allow traffic only from those security groups, which is basically what we did, and that is the most secure way. The other options don't necessarily make sense. Making it publicly accessible but using a strong password. No. Using the default security group. No. This is exactly what we did, and that was the most secure way of connecting QuickSight and RDS. Why is it recommended to use IAM users instead of the root user for everyday tasks? We don't want to give all the access, unrestricted access. If we wanted to do this, this would be, you might as well just give the root, right? So this is a root user. We're not worried about billing and payment. It's not about accounts. We want to give individual access with specific permissions and enhanced security. So that we know who has access to what. And then MySQL and SQL. We know that MySQL is a database management system and SQL is a language, and MySQL uses SQL. So we're going to go with C. Last question, guys. Okay. Why is it important to configure security groups for an RDS instance? Is it to automate backups? Is it to manage the size and performance of the RDS? To encrypt data stored in RDS? Or is it to control inbound and outbound traffic? I can see why this might be tempting, but we just did the project. We know exactly what we did to configure our security group. So we are going to go and select D because we know it's right, and it is right. 5 on 5. Oh my God. I'm so excited. Okay, and look at that. You even get a little badge at the end of it. But that's not all. We get a documentation. But oh no, I can't see it. Well, let's go find out which task I missed. Aha. And why? Because I didn't select done. How silly of me. Is that all? Do I need to go and check again? Let me lazily check down. Okay. That means there's more that I missed. Let's see. That's done. Oh. All right. Sometimes I forget to hit done. Now let me not be lazy and let me just go and check if everything is done. Okay, all of it is done. I'm gonna go all the way down and the button looks good. I'm gonna click on it and woohoo, we have a documentation that we can download. We can save it to our portfolio, which I will, and I'm gonna save. And you can also save it as a PDF and then upload it to LinkedIn or any of your preferred social posts. So let me save it as PDF just so that I can show you what that looks like. You can also save it to your portfolio, and what that would do is that it would look at that. Oh, I forgot that I selected the fun option. Huh. Yeah. You can also add it to your portfolio, and then that becomes accessible when you click your portfolio, which is right here. But can we take a second to just admire the documentation? Look at all my screenshots. Beautiful. And all the answers that I added. Wow. Oh my goodness. It's time to show off. Amazing. Is that all right if I just admire my own work? I think that's okay. I'm just really happy that it's done. So what happens when you save to portfolio is that you can then click your portfolio and here you go. I added it multiple times, so it's all in there multiple times. And then you can even edit the name of your project or share your entire portfolio and all that jazz. But Yeah, have fun with this project. I hope you got a chance to explore all the exciting things in the dashboard, play around with the charts, and stay with me for the next project. We will be working on Aurora, right? Um, let's just check. What is the next project? Am I scrolling too fast? It's the Aurora database with EC2. So join me on the next session where we'll be doing a live demo of the Aurora database with EC2. And thank you for joining me. I hope this video was helpful to you. I am Maya from Nextwork signing off. Till next time. Bye-bye.